Welcome to the motherfucking relay where we're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Well, Deontay Wilder rips into Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz with expletive-laden rant after fight. Eddie Hearn laughs at his pay-per-view sales. And, you know, Wilder's pay-per-view sales and Eddie Hearn laughing at them really isn't the focal point of this video, so much as the amount of criticism that Andy Ruiz is receiving due to his post-fight comments in regards to his weight, how serious or not serious he took the rematch with Anthony Joshua. He approached the second fight about 10-15 pounds heavier than he did the first fight. And how people are saying that this is not, professional, this is not responsible, this is not becoming of a champion. Deontay Wilder had this to say. He says, I take this shit seriously. I don't know what their mentality is, but I didn't become a champion of the world to say, put me in the record books, at least I can say I was a champion. They can never take that away from me. Fuck that shit. I'm here for legacy. Long live the king. That's my mentality. And America should love a world champion like me. Wilder also had harsh words for Joshua, deriding his performance and suggesting he will never fight the Brit in a unification showdown. He said Joshua did what he had to do to get the win. He ran around the ring and was on his bike all day. Once you cut the ring off, you put Joshua in a corner and you can have your way with him by hitting him the way you did the first time. To be in boxing that long and not know how to cut off the ring, if he knew, he didn't do it or didn't have the intellect. I'm a little upset with him. Ruiz said he was doing great, not letting this moment get to him. But in the end, you hear him saying he ate too much and he should have trained harder. Like, what the fuck? What do you mean you ate too much and could have trained harder? Now, Deontay Wilder's not the only one taking a jab at Andy Ruiz due to his post-fight comments about not training enough and eating too much. Teddy Atlas, he's got some pork chop jokes to go around, and we all know how the boxing fans are. There's no shortage of them voicing their opinions about how Andy Ruiz dropped the ball. And just like that, the guy that many of these people were praising, including Deontay Wilder, the guy that many of these people were praising has become boxing's social pariah. Boxing's heavy bag for jabs that are coming from anyone from Wilder to Teddy Atlas to the boxing community at large and the pundits. Just like that, Andy Ruiz, he's nobody's sweetheart, this kid.
Not anymore.
And this is one of those instances where character, the fiber of a person's being and how they carry themselves, this is one of those instances where character would have went a long way.
How so?
That Andy Ruiz sought to excuse away, if you will, his inability to deal with a more mobile, more athletic, more outside fighter in Anthony Joshua. He chose to excuse his lackluster performance against this version of Anthony Joshua by saying that he didn't take the fight seriously.
Well, that ain't good.
And in that way, all the criticism that he is now receiving is criticism that he brought on himself. I mean, you go up there saying what you're saying.
Yeah.
In regards to a performance where you were clearly outclassed, lost in the sauce, you simply didn't know what to do, couldn't really do anything with this guy, to be honest. Not unless he just so happens to make a mistake, and unless he does, you're up the creek without a paddle. You go up there after a performance like that, saying this, that you ate your way out of a title, you ate your way out of your world titles. Your father, Andy Ruiz's own father, for the Spanish-speaking people out there that have seen that interview already.
Why did he do that? Because he mentioned in a press conference he didn't listen to you, he didn't listen to Manny Robles, his trainer. What was he not listening to? What was he doing outside of boxing?
He was not listening because he was, the fame came. He was with Ruiz, he was with his friend. He was throwing parties, not listening to the camp. He was running by himself. We rent a house in Manhattan Beach and that way he can come with us and stay in the house. He didn't want to stay with us. He was staying with his friend and tried to run by himself. It was a worst camp that he been doing. And I don't think nothing about AJ. He's a good boxer. A great person. We love AJ. And he deserved this night to win.
Andy Ruiz's own father is saying that Andy wasn't listening to his trainer, Manny Robles. He wasn't respecting him. He wasn't putting forth the necessary effort that he needed to hold on to those belts, That if he's coming off as some kind of flash in the pan, if people are likening Andy to what is a newer, fatter version of Buster Douglas, well, it has a lot to do with what Andy's telling them. Andy's telling them that he didn't take the fight seriously. Andy's telling them that he ate his way out of those belts. And in truth, I don't necessarily have much stock in Andy saying that. I look at that as Andy taking the cheap, easy way out. Because in all honesty, I said it in my last video, whether Andy would have been taking the fight seriously or not taking the fight seriously, whether he would have approached the fight, 10 pounds lighter or 15 pounds lighter or 15 pounds heavier, wouldn't have made the least bit of fucking difference, because so long as Anthony Joshua was fighting that long distance outside kind of fight, there would have been very little that Andy could do about it, whether he was serious or not. But better still, the fact that this is how Andy is choosing to explain away his performance, well, it shows a lack of character. I mean, this is your way of making excuses that, oh, I didn't take the fight seriously anyway.
Okay.
That's what he's doing. He's taking the easy way out. And that denotes a lack of character. After Andy Ruiz bounced Anthony Joshua off the canvas 4 times, Anthony Joshua didn't say I didn't take Andy seriously. He didn't make any excuses for it.
Of like accusations and worries about what was wrong with me. But I want to tell you this, I'm a soldier and I have to take my ups and my downs. And on Saturday, I took a loss and I have to take it like a man. Was in a niche changing room space, warmed up really well. I had no panic attack, like I'm not that type of person, you know me. And that's why I say, and I'm gonna keep on saying, is that I have to take my loss like a man. No blaming anyone, no blaming anything. I'm the one who went in there to perform and my performance didn't go to plan. My game plan didn't go to plan. So I have to kind of readjust, analyze, do my best to correct it, and get the job done in the rematch.
In spite of all the rumors that were circulating about panic attacks and concussions and being hurt in sparring, not a single one of these rumors, not a single one of these excuses, as some people would characterize it, were actually coming from the man himself. They weren't coming from Anthony Joshua. He wasn't making excuses for what happened. Put simply, he gave Andy his credit for being the better man the night of the fight. He won, that's it, and I'll get it back in the rematch. No biggie. That's how Anthony Joshua chose to handle defeat, with character. Whereas in the case of Andy Ruiz, that is not the case. This does denote a lack of character by him trying to excuse away his lackluster performance, saying that, well, I didn't take the fight seriously anyway. Well, that really ain't no fucking better.
It's not.
You know what I mean? It ain't.
It's not.
What, are you expecting sympathy from people when they hear that?
Good luck.
You know? I mean, I actually gave Andy Ruiz the benefit of the doubt when I heard that he was approaching the rematch heavier than he did the first fight. When I heard that he was, 13, 14, something like that, 15 pounds over from the last time, I actually thought it was strategy, okay? I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I thought to myself, they've spent all this time saying that, Andy's going to approach the fight more streamlined, more athletic. He's going to try to lose some weight. That look at what he did in the first fight on short notice, and just imagine what he could do if he approaches the fight with a full camp. And that's what he had. That's what he had the opportunity to do. He had ample time. This wasn't a short notice fight. First fight was in June. Rematch was in December. Plenty of time in there to get it together.
There's no excuses.
I heard all this stuff, and I thought to myself, maybe this is some kind of ruse, because he's been telling everybody that he's going to approach the fight lighter, but here he is, and he's heavier. So maybe what all this was a bit of strategy, a ruse, to get Anthony Joshua preparing for what could be a lighter fighter, then showing up heavier the night of the fight. I thought that these guys were going for punching power and durability, but after the fight, Andy Ruiz made it clear that no, that wasn't strategy. You just ate too many fucking pizzas.
Y carnitas, güey.
On one end, I feel like so long as Anthony Joshua fought that kind of fight, there wouldn't have been anything Andy could do about it, whether he's taking the fight seriously or not. There's that, but then there's what Andy Ruiz is actually saying. That only further accents that Andy Ruiz is not fit to be a champion, that he doesn't have the discipline, the professionalism, and the consistency to remain in the upper echelon of fighters in the heavyweight division. That's all it means. And Andy brought these criticisms on himself by saying these things.
Pretty much.
A part of me feels like the reason he's saying it is to try to denigrate Anthony Joshua's victory, try to take away from it. That, oh, well, I wasn't taking the fight seriously anyway.
Oh, because if you were, you would have won, right?
Well, I reiterate, I don't think there's anything Andy could have done in that time frame, under those circumstances, to mold himself into the kind of fighter that can work around that particular style. That hit and not get hit, safety first, defensively minded style that Anthony Joshua brought into the second fight. And here's a news flash, folks.
What?
Anthony Joshua implementing that kind of style was something that Andy Ruiz himself anticipated. He figured that Joshua was going to try to box from the outside leading up to the rematch.
He said so.
Except this time, unlike the first time, it's not a short notice fight. You've got the opportunity to have a full camp.
This time.
So it's not like you were surprised. It's not like you were blindsided. Andy Ruiz, like a lot of people, he figured that this is the kind of strategy Anthony Joshua was going to use in the second fight. So the whole idea that, oh, I lost the fight because I didn't take it seriously. No. You had an idea what he was going to do, and you couldn't develop anything to work around that style, that particular style. It is for this reason I keep telling you. So long as Joshua boxes that kind of fight against Andy Ruiz, there would have never been anything he could have did about it. There's not enough time in there for you to miraculously turn into Joe fucking Frazier. Because that's what that's essentially the style he would have needed. If you're fighting a long distance, outside jabber, you need to be more like Joe or Mike Tyson. And Andy wasn't going to turn into either of those guys from June of this year to December of this year. It's not enough time, okay? So I look at it as there was never really anything he could have did about it anyway. In truth, I don't think Andy Ruiz is a bad fighter. Even now, in spite of his lack of professionalism, I still consider this guy a top 10 heavyweight. And it's because he gave Anthony Joshua that to which he'd have to work around, If he wasn't a formidable fighter, you could go in there and do any old fucking thing with him. You don't need strategy to beat this guy because he ain't no good. But Andy Ruiz created a situation to where Anthony Joshua had to change things up a bit. Okay, focus on strategy. He gave him that to which he'd have to work around. And in that way, Anthony Joshua is a top 10 guy, and so is Andy Ruiz. So I still consider him a good fighter, a formidable fighter, with deceptive hand speed, powerful counters, and good punch resistance, okay? This is not a guy that you can just go in there and have your way with. I still think he's a good fighter.
Deserves that much.
But don't kid yourself, okay? If he won the first fight, it has more to do with Anthony Joshua's mistake than Andy Ruiz's preparation. You heard Deontay Wilder talking about how Andy should have cut off the ring. That since Anthony Joshua's on the fly, that's what you gotta do. You see Deontay Wilder putting his trainer's hat on. And the whole time I'm thinking, wait a minute, when the fuck has Deontay Wilder ever cut off the ring on anybody? But you know what? Better still, he's actually right. That's what Andy would have had to do, and therein lies the dilemma. Therein lies a problem. Andy Ruiz ain't ever been that fleet of foot. He ain't ever been that mobile, keeping up with a guy, this, that, and the other. Andy Ruiz's bread and butter is hitting guys with punches they don't see between the shots. Those lethal counters of his. He's got hand speed, but he's never really had foot speed. So you can tell him that he's got to cut off the ring, but him being able to do it, well, that's quite another matter. And even if he were 15 pounds lighter, that still wouldn't have made him much more mobile. Not mobile enough. You'd need the foot speed of a Mike Tyson, the herky-jerky movements and athleticism of a Joe Frazier. It's not just enough to have the hand speed. You gotta have foot speed, too. You gotta have that mobility, that athleticism. And Andy wasn't gonna develop that from June of this year till December of this year. That's not enough time to turn into a completely different fighter. You'd need an overhaul that would take a substantial amount of time to complete. Thus, Wilder's got a point, but it's kind of a moot point, because in that time frame, that simply wasn't going to happen. It's fight mechanics, folks. Andy Ruiz would have had to have developed the necessary upper body movement, not just the foot speed, but the bobbing, weaving, slipping, and hooking of a Joe Frazier. That you're simultaneously closing the gap on the guy whilst negating his jab, and once you're within range, you can slip and hook, You need the angles of a Mike Tyson. The angles that are only afforded to you by what was Mike Tyson's foot speed, that he could keep up with a guy, close the gap on the guy, cut off the ring on a guy, but change the angle of attack so that the punches are coming from that guy's side to where they're harder to defend, okay? These are a lot of things that Andy Ruiz would have had to have developed over time in order to succeed against that particular style. Long distance jabber, using those legs, using that ring. That's what it would have took. And you're not going to develop all this different stuff, all these different layers to your game from June till December this year. No way, it wasn't going to happen. I'll tell you that it's not over for Andy Ruiz. I can think of at least one titillating fight that he could be involved in. Oh yeah. There's a guy on the same side of the street as him, okay? PBC fighter. Guy goes by the name of Adam Kalnacki. Volume puncher, phenomenal work rate, respectable power.
Fight like that at the Wintrust Arena in Chicago, where you got plenty of Polish, you got plenty of Mexican fight fans. Okay, fight like that, Chicago at the Wintrust Arena. Ideal venue, ideal location, ideal fight for both guys. Adam Kalnacki needs to step up in competition, and Andy Ruiz needs to rebound from this loss to Anthony Joshua. He's got to get his name back in the hat. A titillating matchup against the volume puncher like Adam Kalnacki, who's in the top 10 in some circles. He's making a name for himself. This is what Andy needs to bounce back, okay? So it's not over for him just because he lost that fight.
I mean, there are other intriguing situations for him to participate in. It's only his second professional loss. His career doesn't have to be over as a result of it. And whether or not he can bounce back really is contingent upon his headspace, his psychology, where he is with himself. The criticism he's receiving, I think people would have been more forgiving if he would have held his tongue. That even if it is the way he says it is, that he gained too much weight, and that's what happened. You partied too hard, you were living high on the hog, and you got ahead of yourself, and that's what costed you. If he would have showed a little bit more reserve, a little bit more character, and kept those thoughts to himself, that if you know that's where things went wrong, and you know that that's what you have to correct, the world don't need to hear that. You tell that to the world, and it comes off as excuses. You're just trying to denigrate this guy's victory by saying you didn't take the fight seriously. But that doesn't make him look bad. That makes you look bad. You show a little bit of character. You suck it up. You say, fuck it, I fucked it up. I dropped the ball. I know I dropped the ball, and I know if I get another opportunity, I won't. You go about it that way, and you acknowledge that he was the better man on the night of the fight. People can respect that. I think a lot of people, including Paulie Malignaggi, would have been more forgiving of Andy Ruiz if it were a tactical error, a mistake made in camp that, maybe you wanted to go for durability and you wanted to go for power, so you packed on the pounds a bit, you tried to psych him out, and it didn't work out. But it was an effort put forth. If it were that, I don't think anybody would be criticizing Andy Ruiz. They'd just have to say, hey, it is what it is, But the fact that he surmises it as him, I guess, not caring enough about the fight, well, what are you going to expect people? What are you expecting people to say?
Congratulations to Andy Ruiz. He has 6 months or so to be champion because the belts go in the air, and he's going to have to defend his title against myself.